It's like, oh God, don't forget to hit record. All right, here we go in 5 seconds. So Ford Mustang, the early years community, welcome back, welcome back. Well, while vintage iron is his profession and his love, that desire is only matched by his love of rock and roll. His fan base consists of the car crazy, and those that share an appreciation for machines that swallow fueled hard, leaving only a few drops behind on the already stained garage floor. He has been dubbed the most influential and relatable automotive storyteller by 4 Barrel Media, and he is here to chat with us today about all things vintage metal. Welcome to Ford Mustang, the early years, JP Emerson. Welcome, man.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to have you here. You know, it's almost like there is, I know you may not feel like it, but there is a bit of celebrity among us, and I don't mean me, so it's got to be you.
It's probably on your wall behind you because it's not here.
Hey, so tell me, JP, so you've been writing about cars and all things vintage metal for how long?
Cars probably the better part of 10 plus years. Always had a love for them, but never really had an outlet. I did a bunch of ghost writing in the past, which if you're not familiar with that, it's you basically write the article or the story or the information, and you don't get the byline. So you get paid for it. You just don't get the byline.
All right. So what's more important, the gain or the glory? Which one do you want?
Well, it's never been the glory. It's just something I've always enjoyed. I enjoy talking to people and getting their story, their backstory. So that's really what it was all about for me is having the opportunity to do that and to share that story through whatever medium.
So JP, when it comes to telling a good story, especially when it comes to something like a classic ride, what makes for a good story? I mean, you know, you can have the love affair that somebody has for their machine, but what have you found through the years that you've been doing this, through the decade plus of time, that really makes for a story that captivates listenership?
I think it's the history that the owner has with that particular car or any car that you're talking about. The cars themselves obviously are machines. They're probably, if you're lucky, they're going to last much longer than we are. But the history, the backstory, the memories that they have is something that we all share, we can all relate to. And that's something that I really enjoy getting to the meat of because that's what bonds us together. No matter what brand you're loyal to, everybody's got a great story to share.
Yeah, what's neat about it is I go back to, you know, the Bullet story with Steve McQueen and just think about it. And, you know, it is you know, a number is just a number. I mean, we determine what the assumed value is of that car. Now, how it was able to get $3.4 million in auction was not because the metal is actually more valuable than the car that's sitting in my, you know, garage. It's a 65 convertible that was under $20,000 for that car. But it's the perception that we put because it was the first, or it was the most famous, or one of the most famous cars that's out there. So maybe share some of those stories that you've had an opportunity to share, to tell your readership. What has captivated you to bring you? What's attracted you to that story to begin with?
To the Bullet story or any story?
Any of those stories. I mean, I'll take Bullet if you had a chance to talk about, you know, have you written it? And again, I'm speaking from an ignorant perspective, so I apologize. Have you written any stories about Bullet itself?
Not necessarily about Bullet, although I did talk to the owner that recently sold it prior to him selling it. And again, he went back to, I understand that it's, you know, a historic car. It's a pop icon, but to him and his family, it was the memories that he shared with his dad, with his family in that car, and what it meant to basically to hold that secret for so many years when so many people were searching for it. There was a small select group that already knew where it was, and that's what made it so special to them. I'm sure at the end of the rainbow, knowing that there was going to be a nice payday probably helped the cause, but it's also a bittersweet pill because they're selling the memory that they had for that dollar amount. and it was a nice dollar amount to sell those memories for.
So do you think that the value of that vehicle was raised because of the secrecy? And why did they want to keep it a secret? Because of, again, if it's based upon my assumption, which is you take the supply out of the market and the demand goes up for it, and it's like, hey, we finally found the car and here's the value. What do you think?
I think it had a lot to do with Steve McQueen owning it, or wanting it, I should say. The movie studio owned it. How popular the movie was, that nobody knew where it is. I'll compare it to perhaps a rock and roll type story. You know, is Elvis really dead? Is Jim Morrison really dead? You know, there's all these different conspiracy theories. We probably know the truth behind that, but until it's tangible, till it's right in front of you, you can't prove anything. And that's what they knew. So there was a giant enigma around it, and that really drove people to want it, which is probably ultimately what drove the person that purchased it to want it even more, just because no one else would have it. It was just theirs.
Yeah, and it's a great story too, and it's great that it was able to get as much as it was at auction. But from a different perspective, taking money out of the equation, just to have some great stories to be able to share. What are some of the, maybe one of the top 1 or 2 stories that you've had an opportunity over the last 10 years to cover when it comes to classic rides?
One of the coolest ones, I wrote an article. Off the top of my head, I can't recall his name. It's been a couple of years, excuse me, but he is I believe he's the head of the United States Navy's 4th Fleet. He's all of it. And he has a 67 Mustang. He's had it for many years. And the cool part about that is it's with him on a ship. It goes with him. I don't know that he wanted me to share that information, but it's been a couple years. But he has some great stories.
Nobody's listened to the show. It's fine.
Yeah. So, but it's one of those things where he's seen so many cool things and been so many cool places and have met so many people. And this is something that he brings with him. That it's that important to him, and to speak to someone in that position. It really stands out to you. I've had other ones where I spoke with a young lady in the Carolinas. Her dream was to have a Mustang. She writes songs about it. She sings country music, and that's her thing. That's what she relates to. And you go from one extreme to another, where you have an adult that's carried a memory with him forever, and now you have a younger generation that's connecting with the car itself, and you can see how they weave themselves in and out. Again, how they build memories through a piece of machinery, and it's really cool to see those things.
So I know you share through your articles and through your work, you share everybody else's story. And there may be some people that are listening to this that know your name, but don't know anything about your story. Can you maybe share a little bit of your backstory? Why is this such a fascination and such a love for you, JP?
Well, my first car was a 65 Mustang. I still have the ad for it. Found in one of those Auto Trader type magazines more years ago than I care to remember. I remember what I paid for it. And back then, before the internet, before cell phones, before any of that, that represented the open road, freedom to us. That was the gateway to adulthood, to be able to get out on your own and go your own direction, to use an automotive metaphor. And that's what it was for so many people. I drove the wheels off that car, quite literally, rebuilt it at least twice that I can recall off the top of my head. I had breakdown stories, I had flat tires, the speeding tickets, all the things that you expect when you're coming of age. And at the end of the day, it was passed on to someone else so that they can enjoy the same things. I mean, I had it a long time, but it was a blast. It was easy to work on. I learned to work on cars by building the old model kits years ago. Started with the snap tight kits, and then went on to when Mom would let me use the glue, to building them. That's where I learned where the parts were and how things worked, and that's really where the love for it started. The Mustang, there were many of them that I looked at when I was first looking for a car, but it really came down to what was nearby, what was affordable, and what could I drive without killing myself. So.
I totally hear you. I like making pizza, but I don't become a pizza maker.
Sure.
You love Mustangs, but it doesn't necessarily mean what made you hop that line between, hey, I love this so much that I'm going to become a writer of this. And then knowing that you have the talent, was this an acquired talent, or was this one that was just completely born from the desire to be able to share people's stories through this medium called writing?
Well, the writing, I've always written. I wrote everything from short stories and things through school. I covered high school sports for the local newspaper, mainly because it got me into football games for free. I did stats. I just enjoyed talking to the people and putting those things together. Where it came into play with the cars and Mustangs, I'd go to a car show and you'd see the magazines for sale. They'd have a booth there or whatever. And obviously the cover cars, they're always perfect. That's what gets people to buy. But there's so many other cars that, you might only fit 2 or 3 cars in an issue, and there's 12 issues in a year. So, maybe you get 36. Well, there's 250 just at a car show. And I thought they have equally nice cars. They may not be trailer queens, but they're just as nice. They have great stories, and everybody wants to be proud of them. So why not share their stories as well? There's a lot more everyday Joes like myself than there is the high dollar person that's dropping $250,000 for a car.
Right.
It's a possession to them from what I've seen versus a pride thing for someone that's rebuilt the car themselves and gets out and enjoys it.
So share some of the depths that you've gone to find a story. Have you traveled far? Have you spent a lot of money? Give me some backstory behind one of them.
Let's see. Can't really say I've spent a lot of money traveling. I called in a lot of favors trying to get contacts. It starts. What I'd like to do is if I were speaking to someone like yourself, I want to get your information, and I always want to ask, do you know somebody that's got a great car, great story? Because everybody knows somebody, whether it's in their club or it's online, and you can get many people that way. The biggest hurdle to that is many people don't believe that their story is worth telling, and that's incredible to me, because a lot of those people have the most incredible stories. Either they just don't feel worthy, or maybe they're a little ashamed to tell it.
Yeah.
You really get a lot, out of those. And from those people, when you make contacts with them, they know a lot of other people. And if they have a good experience with you, then they can say, hey, talk to this guy. This is what he did. And it's pretty much grown from there.
Yeah, I love your, what's the expression? Treat rock stars like normal people and normal people like rock stars. I mean, that's kind of been my philosophy with getting people onto the show. Sometimes I prefer even doing less research than more research, because the deeper that I go sometimes into somebody's background, I'm like, oh God, these are really, I'm a little nervous to talk to them because they got some pretty good skill set. I'm thinking about, not in that particular case, but I'm thinking about some people that get their stories shared over and over and over again, like Gail and Tom Wise, who were created that, they were the first owners of the Mustang in the US and sold publicly. And I love their story, and I know they've told it a million times, and I loved having them on the show. but I'd much rather have a guy that's in, the suburban Maryland area that has never been interviewed before, has 5 Mustangs that are classic. Like I had a guy, his name is Dave Schaefer. He just sat in on the guest seat last week. And what was so great about him, he's just a normal guy. He's like you and me, like you said, and it's just a wonderful story to tell. Not that I don't like telling the Tom and Gail Wise story, but so many people that are in the world of Mustang and have heard it. That's like getting a normal guy on. So it's almost like it is fun, but does it sell publications? In the world that you're in, I think it's, hey, what's going to sell publications for me? In my world, I don't care if it's famous or infamous. It doesn't really matter, because I'm going to put out another episode next week, and it doesn't cost me any more to put another one out.
Sure.
So
I think the biggest misconception of, I haven't spoken with them. I've read their story a million times, like you said. But I think the biggest misconception with, especially, I've had the opportunity to speak with many people that you would see on television or you see at the car shows. They're just normal people, for the most part. And they've told their story a million times. I like to start with, I know this information because you've shared it. I'm going to ask you something different. Because they're not prepared for that. We don't delve into personal info or anything like that, but I'll find out what are they good at? What do they like to eat? What was life like in your house growing up? And once you establish that rapport with them, they share an awful lot. The readers, they know the story about your car. They've read it a dozen times. They want to know more about you. They want to connect with you as if you're sitting at a car show in that tight little circle that you always see at a car show where there's 25 people shooting the breeze. And now they're getting to know you, the person. And that's what makes, like the power profiles that I work on so unique, because they're unlike anything else that I write, just a standard car article.
So tell me a little bit about some of the power profiles. It looks like it again was Jay Leno and Christy Lee. Were they a part of that power profile series, or is that something else?
Well, Christy Lee is an absolute blast to talk to. Super fun, exactly like you see on television. She's the person that you want in the room with you because she's going to pull you out of your shell. Very talented. She's not just the person that you're going to see, wiping a little grease on her face and acting like, she's pulling pistons. She's actually going to do it.
Right. Right.
Leno's on the wish list. I'm working on that. But other individuals, Dave Kindig from Bitchin' Rides, super nice guy. He just wants to help. He'll tell you stories, many stories that you don't see anywhere else. And again, these are just people that have a love for the automobile, be it Mustang or Mopar or Chevy or whatever the case is. And again, that's where they all blend together. They may not necessarily be a Mustang person, but they can appreciate a Mustang and a Mustang individual because we all share the same love for the car.
So given the opportunity to interview anybody that is no longer living, but being able to bring them back to share 30, 45 minutes, an hour long interview with that was a part of the Mustang world, who would that be for you?
Well, Lee Iacocca would be a good one. That would be interesting to get his real feelings on things, not the corporate line, but how things really came to be. Carroll Shelby, of course, although I had the opportunity to work with him on several occasions. He would be fun. He was never one to sugarcoat anything. Mm-hmm. Dan Gurney would be a great one. I could probably go on, but I think those would be some of the top.
Yeah, that's great. And absolutely, 100% hear it. And, what happens next for you? We're dealing in and I think we had a brief conversation about this on the phone before we connected on this interview today, but we're living in a crazy world right now. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's going anywhere. Everybody's doing stuff from their house. A couple questions I have. Number one, why don't you have a podcast? That would be question number one. And the second question is, what do you do now? What do you do now?
Well, I continue, as far as what I'm doing now, I continue on my interviews, my power profiles. That hasn't stopped, although the outlets have really all but stopped. Times are tough for everybody. So they're doing a lot of paid content and rerunning information. But that's what they have to do to survive.
Right.
What I have to do to survive is to continue doing what I'm doing in the hopes that eventually this will start to clear up and I'll have quite a backlog of information and stories and articles that people are still going to be interested in, because they're not dated information.
Right.
It's still going to be relevant when this comes back around.
Yeah, man. And I totally see you as and again, I know we brushed upon this in our phone call, but I see you taking these interviews and creating your own paid content. This could be your own paid channel where you have people that are either asking for exposure in exchange for, money for making it happen, or some other way. There's got to be some way that you can monetize this, capitalizing on this new media space called podcasting. It's just way too prevalent, way too prolific. And right now it just seems to be, tearing up the media waves.
Well, I think that's where I'm going to leave it up to you to help me.
and we will continue that conversation. Excellent. Hey, so JP, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you just to find out a little bit more about what you do, how you do it, or maybe be the subject of an article that you could write about them, and how cool would that be? Ford Mustang community commission JP to come out or to have a conversation with you and write an article about what you do. I know that he knows what the hell he's doing. I mean, I've read a ton of his articles, not that I'm an authority on it, but hey, listen, he is the king of storytelling. And I love the fact that you do it from a perspective of storytelling rather than a perspective of here's all the bits and bytes and digits and analytics about the cars. I love about the people. The cars are good, but that's something that you definitely will do. So share with how people can get in touch with you to take advantage of what you do.
Well, they can go to the website, which is really simple. It's jpemerson.com. There is a contact on, I believe it's the last page. You can just fill out your information, or you can just email me it's jp@jpemerson.com. All I ask is just a little bit of information about, what you want to share, and we can get in touch. And I am on social media. I'm on Twitter, the only social media I am on, which is _JP Emerson.
Perfect. All right, JP. Well, thanks for being on the show, and thanks for sharing your content, your inspiration, and definitely your message with our community today. Thanks for being here.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Hey, so if you have an idea for the show or you think you make a great guest, send an email directly to me. That's at doug@turnkeypodcast.com. Get all of our episodes directly in your inbox. Just follow the link in the show notes. That's to the mustangpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Keep it safe, keep it rolling, and keep it on the road. Until next time.